Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today. Today's Tips Tuesday is going to be really simple, but really easy to implement, and it's going to increase your chances of being able to come home with some images in your camera. So let's get into it. If you're new to my channel, my name is Todd DeWald, and I am a full-time wildlife and conservation photographer in New England. In this tip series, it is my goal to share with you some of the tips and techniques that I've developed over the years, in the hopes that they will assist you in your photography journey. Consider subscribing to my channel to learn more, and thank you for watching. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, you know that planning is a big part of what I do before I go out for a wildlife session. Now, part of that planning is going to be able to create and kind of generate multiple plans for each session. So what do I mean by that? So a lot of times we have a primary goal, either a primary species we want to photograph or a primary location we want to go to photograph. And a lot of times when we're out in the field, that main objective doesn't come true. Something happens, there's a lot of different variables in wildlife photography, so maybe that species isn't out, maybe the location you're going to isn't as good as a location as you're thinking it was going to be, the lighting's not right, whatever the case may be, and that main objective can't be achieved. It's always good to have a secondary plan or maybe even a plan C sometimes, so that you can pivot and you can adjust and still have a successful outing, even if that main objective that you had isn't possible anymore. So here's an example. A couple weeks ago, I went out looking for an eastern screech owl. It had been located in a cavity. It was a beautiful day to go out. It was nice. But my main goal was to go and photograph this owl. But when I got there, I didn't find it. Okay, so I could have just packed up and left right then and there, or I could have realized that this owl is in a floodplain forest. It's in a location right along a river. There's a lot of good habitat right along that same location, and there's other species I can photograph in that location. All of this I would have known when I did the research and the planning on the location and kind of being able to identify what species are going to be in that kind of habitat. So instead of just going home when I didn't find the owl, instead I stuck around in the area and was able to photograph some waterfowl in the river, was able to photograph some birds that were foraging in the brush and in the fields. So instead of that being a failed session of not finding anything to photograph, instead I was still able to come home with some images because I was able to pivot, I was able to adjust and move on to my plan B while I was out there. And I was still able to enjoy the experience when I was out there. So that's just a really simple technique. It's really easy to do. It doesn't have to be a very specific goal when your main objective doesn't come out. Just, okay, you want to photograph a specific species. Okay, well, just have in the back of your mind, what other species can I find in that location so that when I don't find this one, I can still kind of use what time I have left to see if I can find some other species to photograph. And another kind of part of this idea is don't go out so focused on the one species you want to photograph or your one objective that you end up missing and not noticing all of the other things you can photograph when you're out there. One kind of idea that I use, I very rarely go out and specifically photograph owls. Very rarely do that because they're just so hard to find and they move around. They're so well camouflaged. So instead of going out specifically looking for owls, every time that I'm out in the field, I'm looking for owls because it gives me an immediate plan B. If I find an owl, I'm going to switch gears and photograph that owl, no matter what I was planning on photographing. So having these multiple plans kind of in your head at the same time when you're out in the field really makes it so you can be aware of what's happening around you and really be able to see the different subjects and take advantage of the opportunities that you have out in the field instead of being so narrow focused that you miss everything else because you're trying to photograph the one species. It's just a good way to be able to come home with some images if you're able to see everything around you and pivot quickly when something doesn't work out. So that's my goal for today. Have multiple plans and be able to adjust when things don't work out for the first time, and just be open-minded and observe everything that's going on around you so that even when that first objective that you have doesn't work out, you're able to just immediately switch gears and take advantage of what's in front of you. All right, so that's it for today. We'll see you next week for the next Tips Tuesday. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, leave me a comment. I really appreciate it. And I will see you then. Thanks for watching.